Okay.
What comes off of it?
Common carotid. Cranial thyroid artery.
Okay.
And internal and external carotid. And internal carotid ligament.
Let's not worry about that yet.
Oh, that's
what
all
are
I
the
know.
others? You probably will not see the internal carotid ligament.
Okay.
Especially in something like this, they all
ascending pharyngeal artery.
Okay. What else right in there?
The lingual,
no,
laryngeal. Laryngeal artery.
And one other.
I'm just guessing here. I don't know.
Keep going back. Follow it from common carotid.
Where's your map?
Oh, there's the map. Duh.
No, this map.
Oh.
The map.
The map.
Not a map.
Thyroid arteries. Did I already say that?
Said that.
Occipital artery.
Okay, that's the one you didn't mention.
Okay.
Now the common carotid is going to split up into the internal and external carotids. Now in the cat, unfortunately, the internal carotid is vestigial, and usually it'll just be a little tiny piece of connective tissue that's lost in all the other fascia in there.
Okay.
So you can't really see where the internal carotid is, but you can see where these other arteries are located. The thyroid is going to go medially toward the larynx. The ascending pharyngeal is going to go cranially and dorsally. It runs around the pharynx. So if you think about where the carotid is, the ascending pharyngeal goes up around the pharynx, the wall of the pharynx. The occipital goes back toward the base of the skull. And so those all come off in about the same region. And unfortunately, on a cat this size, they're going to be pretty darn small. And so you can see, as the common carotid comes up, before it gives rise to these vessels that go up to the head, you're going to have vessels that go into the tissue. This one here, you see this one here? Looks like that's the occipital. You follow it around, it goes over toward the base of the skull, toward the occipital region. The occipital is going to go straight in from the common carotid. The thyroid goes across. The ascending pharyngeal goes up at an angle like this, and if you see where the pharynx is, you know, we've opened up the pharynx here. The walls of the pharynx are right here. And the ascending pharyngeal is going to go kind of medially toward that and then continue up and around the pharynx. And it's hard to see right here, but see this little one right here? That's probably the stub of the ascending pharyngeal. Then the internal carotid ligament is going to go up toward the base of the skull also. The tympanic bowl is right here. I can feel that bone right in there. And the internal carotid goes right up to the base of that. And this might be the internal carotid right there. See that little tiny one? But in most, as I said, most of them you won't see it, but it runs just medial to the tympanic bowl. Now after that, this then is the external carotid. After it gives off the internal, then it's common carotid up until those two branch, and then it's external carotid after that. And so then you'll have a vein going beneath the mandible to the floor of the oral cavity, an artery going to the floor of the oral cavity, and that'll be the what?
Carotid artery?
No.
Lingual.
Lingual artery goes in here and goes to the hypobranchial muscles and continues up into the tongue. And that's going to be this here. And then the external carotid continues up And you can follow it in here. And the final branches of the external carotid are which arteries?
Maxillary.
Maxillary. And do you guys have deep facial?
Facial.
And superficial temporal. Are you having problems reading that?
No, I'm just. There's more than two more
You're
left.
a horrible navigator.
Well, we're over here. No, there's not. Caudal auricular. Yeah, there's more than two. Caudal auricular and superficial temporal are the only other two, and those split around the ear. And so the maxillary is going to go deep in here and go to the upper jaw. And unfortunately, we kind of have to clean this away. This isn't dissected out. You got to dissect deep to the masseter here. And you can go ahead and, this has all been removed anyways from the surface of the masseter. You can clean that away and see the maxillary and the facial. And then the other two are the two that, one goes in front of the ear and one goes behind it. So the superficial temporal runs up to the temporal region. I think this is all facial here. And I don't see much of yours. The superficial temporal is going to go right up here into this fascia up here in front of the ear. And the caudal auricular, usually you have to dig down here to see that. You see this artery right back here, caudal to the ear. It runs up and around the base of the ear on the occipital region of the skull, the back of the skull.
That's the occipital, you said?
No,
Or
that's the
this?
caudal. That's the caudal auricular.
Oh,
the
okay.
occipital goes to the base of the skull, right towards just lateral to the foramen magnum, and
Oh, okay.
it's deep.
Okay.
It's like to the muscles that extend the neck. So you remember where those go, and you can see. I mean, you can identify what they are, because on those you're gonna have thyroid going medially. You're gonna have the occipital going straight back toward the base of the skull, due dorsal. You're gonna have the ascending pharyngeal going up at an angle around the pharynx. You're going to have the internal carotid going just medial to the bulla, if you can see it. And then you give off the large lingual artery to the floor of the oral cavity. And the maxillary goes in deep by the jaw muscles, and the facial goes up to the more superficial or superior parts of the face. And then the two around the ear. The superficial temporal and the caudal auricular.